Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with Jennifer Murphy, president of NetPlus Alliance. NetPlus is a cooperative that caters to industrial and construction distributors. For those of you unfamiliar with the concept, members of the cooperative earn rebate money by channeling their purchases through preferred suppliers aligned with NetPlus. In listening to Jennifer's story, I realized that one of her most admirable qualities is the ability to recognize deficits in the organization and in her own leadership, and then embrace a path to change. Tearing down long-standing methods and traditions can be difficult, but the future health of an organization requires this level of humility and dedication. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do too. This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by NSQL Distribution Software. NSQL prides themselves on their rapid response customer support team. They maintain a very low 1 customer support person per 20 user ratio. Now, I have a long history with this company. I met the lead developer several years ago when he attended my inventory management seminar. He didn't just attend, he absorbed the content. Every couple of years, I head up to their Michigan headquarters to talk about product enhancements and see what they're up to. I always come away impressed. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than NSQL Distribution Software at www.nsql.com. That's INXSQL.com. All right, Jennifer. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. My pleasure. So let's dive right into it. Let's talk a little bit about your distribution journey. How did you get involved? How did you get dragged into the family business? All of those fun things. So please take it away.
Well, I have to start by saying when I listened to the podcast with Richard Lawless, he talked about how he kind of tricked his father into getting into business with him. And I often tell people that I feel that my father kind of tricked me into getting into this business with him. So we have that.
Totally.
We have that story in common.
Yes, for sure.
But really, the history and the story of NetPlus Alliance really kind of starts right here where I am, which is I'm at our office on the Erie Canal in Lockport, New York. So our family business started as a machine shop in the late 1800s that my great-great-uncles inherited. And in 1931, they incorporated that business into a full-line mill supply.
Okay.
And as that business grew, kind of along with the Erie Canal and all of the industries that were growing up in and around the area, my father and my grandfather and my uncles, even my sister and I, when we were little, worked in that business up until my uncle and my father sold that business in 1990.
Okay. What was that like growing up? Because, I have my next generation story on that, but what was that like? You came in, obviously, at a very young age. You were invited in to at least see the company from young eyes.
The memories that I have that are most fond to me are when my father would go into work and into the office on the weekends. My sister and I would always go with him. It was probably to give my mom a break at home.
Sure.
And when there wasn't anybody there, we could run around in the warehouse and we could sit at people's desks and use their markers and, keep my dad company for the most part. But from the time we were probably old enough to reach the file cabinets, that's really what my sister and I's job was. And if anyone has experience or has a family industrial distribution business, you can remember what the purchase orders were like. They were made out of tissue paper.
Sure.
And the PO numbers were probably about 17 digits long. So when you're in, fifth or sixth grade and you're trying to file these tissue papery invoices with these long numbers, there was always these jokes with the purchasing agents at Ward, Beals and McCarthy that once a PO went into the file room, it was really never to be found again.
Right. Sure.
But Ward, Beals and McCarthy was a very progressive business from the time I was very young. My dad always was very progressive with the business in terms of upgrading to computer systems and having an inventory retrieval system that was in the warehouse. So growing up in and around that business, I saw from a very young age how important it was to embrace change and really to, see the types of things that you needed to do in order to be a much more progressive and competitive business.
Sure. Yeah, it definitely, actually fond memories of hiding sugar cubes all over the place in my dad's company, things like that when I was a kid. But no, go ahead, please tell me more about that, where you transitioned. Now, were you involved with the company when it was sold in 1990 or?
No. So my father was the last president of Ward Beals and McCarthy.
Okay.
He came in to run the business after he graduated from Clarkson with his degree in industrial distribution, and he also served in the Vietnam War. So he had come back and was working in the family business for quite a long time, throughout my life growing up. And I remember getting a letter from him at college and then him calling me afterwards to tell me that they had made a decision to sell the inventory and assets to a larger distribution business in Akron, Ohio, Trumbull Industries. So my father went to work for that business for a few years, and around that time, there was an opportunity to become the executive director of ID1.
Okay.
Ward Beals and McCarthy had been a member of ID1, which was the first industrial cooperative.
Okay.
So he was very familiar with the board, knew the members very well, and they approached him about this opportunity, and he was thrilled. So
great.
He did that and ran that group until around 2000. The members of that group voted to dissolve that cooperative, and that is what became the industrial division of Affiliated Distributors, which is current buying group today.
Yeah.
So after that, my father took a couple of years off, and when he was 60, he wrote the business plan for NetPlus Alliance. And he had really had this concept that there should be an opportunity for a buying group for people to be able to join, have access to suppliers and partnerships, not have a huge entry fee or have it be complicated.
Yeah.
But wanted to be able to do that, and built that group really from the relationships that he had had over the decades that he had been in the industry.
Gotcha. And then you came in when? In mid-90s or late 90s?
Not quite.
No, not quite. You had another adventure in you.
I did. When people ask you the question about how you got into the industry, I would say that it would probably be the last thing that I would have said that I had done.
Yeah.
After I graduated from St. Bonaventure University, which is not far from here, I moved out to California for a while. And when I came back, I lived in Boston and worked for a cultural exchange and language education company called EF, which was a really cool company.
Okay.
In Cambridge, lots of young people from all over the world had the opportunity to travel to a lot of different countries and ran their global incentives program. So I got a lot of good experience. My husband and I got married during that time and had our daughter in Boston. She was born there. So around 2000, my husband and I made a decision to move back to the Lockport area. And after raising my kids for a couple of years in 2006, my dad had said to me, I'd really need some help with my marketing work. That's what my background was in and what my experience was in.
Sure.
And so he had asked me if I would come and work part-time, manage their newsletter, start doing some more outreach to their suppliers and the distributors that were in the group. And it really only started as part-time job. So I was working maybe a couple of days a week when I had some time free from being with my children when they were young. And just a little bit at a time. It was that plan, that maybe ultimately he had, where he was giving me a little bit more responsibility each year, where I started doing payroll and started having more operational responsibilities, started being in on more meetings with supplier partners, being more involved in, again, building the marketing programs that we had offered to our suppliers, and eventually became the president in 2013. So
kind of the soft groom. It was the soft groom. It was the subtle, I'm not going to tell her what I'm doing.
Just a little bit at a time.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep metering it in.
Exactly.
Well played, Dan. Well played. So, yeah. Well, good. And just one of the thoughts I had was, coming from the other organization, the Cultural Exchange organization, what did marketing look like? Or what was the expectation of marketing in NetPlus Alliance? I mean, I know, again, at that point, marketing is not what it is today. I mean, it's absolutely not. And so in those early days, what was the expectation around, I need some marketing help? What does that mean?
It's been so interesting to watch how marketing has evolved, even from the time that I had started working in the business.
Sure.
At the time, and I still think to some extent, distribution is traditional. So I had started out by working on the print newsletter that they send to the membership on a monthly basis. The newsletter at the time was black and white. We used to print it on the printer in the office. And through building relationships with the supplier partners that were in the group, they had a lot more information that they wanted to share with the membership. So just really started to build out the content, offer more opportunities for suppliers to feature products, enlisted a local graphic designer to make the newsletter look better, worked with a local printer to start printing it outside of the office. So they took care of all the printing and mailing. We weren't doing that ourselves, kind of in an ad hoc way. And then eventually adopted an email marketing platform at the time.
Right.
Started doing more digital marketing and more social media at the time, was also kind of starting and really building and gaining more experience and exposure with that as we evolved the group and the offerings that we had. We also put together marketing programs for our suppliers, and those really started in a very small way, just by helping our suppliers communicate better and target distributors within the group to be able to grow. And that really was nothing that had been happening in the group before until I came along. And then I really started to build up that program in the early years of when I started working in the marketing at NetPlus Alliance.
And what's so interesting is that today that is actually a very big part of what any cooperative is, and working with really bridging the gap between that distributor and that associate or manufacturer.
Yeah.
That's just such a huge pillar, yet it was really a very small piece or even a consideration in those early days.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of how things have evolved here, I have a marketing team now. They do an incredible job executing marketing on behalf of our supplier partners, utilizing tools in HubSpot to create campaigns and automation, doing video. We have a really big presence on LinkedIn and other social channels, but we still have arguments in this office about how sometimes we do need paper. I think when you're in a traditional industry like distribution, you do have to be sure that you're meeting the needs of your audience. I'm always really happy at our show, at our annual meeting in particular. I've noticed how many more young people we have coming to the show. And there's nothing that I like more than when my younger team here at NetPlus, talks about all of these things that we need to continue to evolve and change in our offering to our members.
And it's interesting. I just kind of thought about this, that with your background, I think a marketing background actually opens you up to change, more so than maybe some other, traditional business backgrounds. That some of the leaders of organizations, in our space, being construction or wherever, in the distribution vertical, we've met so many. We both know a lot of the same people, but I think it's interesting that the newer leadership coming into these organizations tends to have that creative marketing background, that more open to change type of background. Would you agree that that's really kind of the prototypical next leader in the distribution association world, if you will?
For sure. I mean, I would say, especially at our national meeting, I always get on a platform and talk about how important it is for distributors to continue to embrace change. I think maybe the best outcome of 2020 is the fact that it really forced people to pivot in ways or adopt things that they had never done before in their businesses. And that created the energy and the catalyst for a lot of distribution businesses to understand that they could do more than they had previously done, whether that's, diving into digital marketing or embracing e-commerce or looking at new ways of doing business or really expanding the offering that they have in their current book of business. But I personally went through a program that's based out of the University at Buffalo School of Management. It's called the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership. And this program was established in the early 80s by a group of Buffalo business owners who really wanted to see up-and-coming businesses, new entrepreneurs, or family businesses continue to be successful in the Buffalo market. So it started as a group of accountants and attorneys, marketing people, ad people who really got together to try to help support businesses in that regard, and eventually was adopted by the University of Buffalo School of Management, where they kind of plugged in more educational attributes to the overall program. So that was about 10 years ago that I went through that program, and it was really a turning point for our business in terms of the things that we needed to focus on in order to really change and grow. How, for me as a person kind of coming into the business as more of an executive leader, the things that I needed to focus on, who I needed to know in our business, having a deeper understanding of our financials, because I was a marketing person and I still to this day love marketing and have always loved building our brand and building the brand of the company. But when you're a business owner, you've got to really be across all of those things in order to be successful. And that program definitely helped me understand the things that I needed to do to really grow and scale the business.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that. You would come into this business, you would become a very integral part of this business. You were obviously the heir apparent and the successor in this business at a certain point. You didn't have to do this. You did not have to stop and pause and say, I don't know enough. I need to go back and augment my education. And many people don't. Many people just kind of keep, we're kicking out a pretty good living here. This thing's running pretty well. Maybe it's not broken. Let's not fix it. But you decided to mix it up. Were there indicators? Were there things that you saw that said, ooh, we're not going to be able to make this long term if I don't do something different?
Around that same time, there was a supplier that was in our group who we had a good relationship, had really grown with, but at the time they had felt that we were really not doing enough. They had felt that comparatively with other cooperatives and groups, there were things that we weren't doing that we should be doing.
Yeah.
And that was also kind of a pivotal moment for us in making decisions about how we wanted to change. That supplier now is interestingly our largest partner in the group. So I'm very proud of the fact that, we preserved that relationship, worked to improve the business, and now have proven ourselves to really be one of their strongest partners in growth. But a couple of those things were the fact that we didn't have a national meeting. So when my father started NetPlus Alliance, at the time, he really didn't want to kind of get into having that national meeting. So we adopted having a national meeting. We started really working more closely on the marketing side with our supplier partners, putting plans together that were more specific and targeted to how they wanted to grow.
Right.
We adopted education programs with our suppliers, hosting trainings and other things that we were doing with them in order to help continue to develop employees within our distributors' businesses. So those things were all kind of part of that rebirth that we had about 10 years ago to really change the group, to put ourselves out there to be competitive against those other groups. I mean, you really can't stand still. I often joke with people that I say that I feel like I've run a marathon at a full race pace for the last 20 years in doing this, but you really can't stop to wait for others. You have to really be kind of at the forefront, always working to grow the business and evolve and listening to people. We have an advisory council that gives us a lot of constructive feedback in terms of how we need to grow. We developed a sales planning program with their input. So those things that we hear from them are all things that we do actively to continue to grow and change the group.
Yeah, I can look back, in your history, at least my limited knowledge of your history, and what I see today, from social media and different people that participate in your organization, is there has been tremendous changes. That it's just a very different, and I almost want to say more inclusive group. That there is more, that you're accepting more feedback, and maybe that the members feel that they are more a part of the direction maybe than they did before. Is that a fair statement?
I would definitely say so.
Yeah.
Both the supplier and the distributor advisory councils add a lot of value to us in terms of helping us understand the direction that we need to go in. One of the biggest changes that we're making in the group is we're transitioning our rebates to be visible to our business owners and liaisons in the group. The way the business had been initially developed by my father, and over all those years, that was how it had always been done. But now we're embarking on this path to be able to put the opportunity and the optimization of those programs, of the rebates, of the benefits and advantages that suppliers offer to our members in the hands of the distributors so that they can really grow and focus on the profitability of their businesses. We're putting technology behind that so that people will have access to that whenever they want to see those things. And also really kind of enabling the suppliers to really activate the relationships and the growth opportunities that they have within the group. Something that I really don't hear people say too often that I think all the cooperatives and groups should be incredibly proud of is when you cross the number of members to the number of suppliers that you have in the group and in NetPlus Alliance, it's over 70,000 partnerships, either that are active or have the potential to be active. And I think that's what
interesting. Yeah.
Our team gets really excited about, the fact that there's still all of this out there that we really haven't turned on yet. So making these changes that we've made within the business through Growth Plus sales planning, through hands-on education and training, through our Blue Volt platform, through talking with people and engaging with people and building that, all of that is just turning on all of those opportunities for our suppliers and distributors in the group to grow together and be more profitable and successful businesses.
I'm actually thrilled to hear that you are opening more transparency, the transparency side, because I think that was always a mysterious area of your organization before. And it was always the eyebrow raise. Well, what do you mean they don't know exactly what the rebate is or the deal is or something like that? I think that's phenomenal that you all have realized or decided to move down that trail. Now, I will say that your members were very happy with getting checks and, and the benefits and not really knowing what was behind the curtain. But I think that you're right, that the evolution will, it'll blossom for sure. I really believe that.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I mean, I think one of the aspects of that is the fact that for us, from an operational standpoint, we remain fairly static in terms of that as we've grown. So the company now has grown to an extent where the growth of our rebates are outpacing our operational expenses and even our purchases. So our membership really has the opportunity to capitalize on all of the things that the partners and the suppliers in the group have to offer to them. And it's at our greatest advantage to put that information in front of people so that they have the ability to be able to make those choices and really select the relationships and partnerships that are going to contribute to their overall growth and success as companies.
And going back to the change theme, it's, again, you had that catalyst. You had someone come in and say, if you don't change, I'm leaving. I think that's the blunt way of putting it. But you were able to hear that message. And I think that is, something extremely commendable in that a lot of, executives who have been successful, they're not willing to listen to that message, and that it is going to make it extremely difficult for that organization to thrive in the future.
Yeah, someone said something to me recently that was really interesting to me. So 10 years ago, I went through that program. We made a lot of changes in the business in order to grow. And now here we are, 10 years later, having the same conversations within our team. And someone had said to me, when you're an entrepreneur and when you're a business that's growing really fast, you say yes to people a lot. You say, yes, I can help you. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we're going to help you grow. And you do everything that you possibly can to show gratitude, to build the relationship, to enhance the brand, to grow. We have been doing all of those things. And now we're at a place where our focus is going to be on really optimizing the business so that we're very clear about what we do and what we don't do. And that rebate approach is a big part of that, is this understanding of this is what we do and this is what we don't do and this is how we operate. And we are a very fiscally responsible, honest, and genuine team in terms of how we do business. I think that across the board, if you asked any of our suppliers and distributors about, really kind of what are the characteristics of our team, we are very passionate about what we do and who we serve. We're always very upfront with people in terms of how we're going to get in to help support. We love to be strategic and really challenge people to think about how we can help each other and really help the distributors in the group find those ways to be able to access new products, grow business with their current customers, find new market opportunities with their end user customers. So it's been a really great experience, that past 10 years, but I'm even more excited about the next 10 years in terms of where we're going.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I was really going to be alluding to that question is what's going to be that next catalyst for change? What is going to be that next poke? Somebody's going to say, hey, you've got to pivot here. And maybe you all have not hit that yet. That is a to be determined, but perhaps it is here. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will say one of the unique things that we launched last year with Milwaukee Tool, we put a program together with them that really tied education through our Blue Volt online learning management platform. We created modules of education that we then coupled with support in the field with those distributors' sales representatives. So they could go out, take the knowledge they'd learned, demo it or show it to an end user customer, have a salesperson on site watching and coaching, and then having them bring that learning back to their own organization. And that kind of full circle opportunity where you're delivering education through virtual means, where you can take those classes, learn anytime you want. You can actually get your hands on the product. You can take it to a customer and really teach them and help them understand how it's going to help their business, help them in their work, and then pull that back into the distribution business to really share that with the rest of the people in the organization. But that program, in and of itself, we were the only group that executed that program, and it has really driven a lot of incredible growth back out to those distributors that have been participating in it.
It's very interesting. Speaking of training and education, I just had a conversation with a client earlier this week, and we were talking about trying to get a sales manager up to speed. And this person admittedly was a hands-on learner, did not do well for video-based learning, and does not do well, written in the written word or in studying of that nature. And so it really got me thinking about how we make sure that we offer those different platforms for people and not try to, because I think, and this isn't a knock on the supplier side, but many of them post-COVID said, boy, look at this. We can do stuff virtually. We don't have to send people places anymore. And so there's been this push to move to a virtual space and a Zoom-based training. But in this case, this person does not learn that way. They have a very difficult time focusing on that Zoom-based learning. So how do we make sure that person does not get lost in our educational process?
Well, one of the other unique things that we offer are what we call a virtual hands-on training, which sounds like a little bit of a contradiction, but we work with our supplier partners where they send a kit of products out to the distributors.
Okay.
And then their trainers, and usually our manufacturer partners have sophisticated video training setups in their companies now. Yeah. So the distributors are in their organization, usually together with the products, and they're watching a live trainer through a live interface, and they're learning about the products and holding them and touching them. They're talking about applications. And I think that's really where you get through to DSRs when they are out in the field. They need to understand what the application is of a product and how it's going to help their customer. So we're tying two things together. We're enabling our supplier partners to reach a much broader audience. We have a virtual training coming up in about a month. I think there's almost 100 people registered for it. And then you also allow them to be able to touch and feel the product and get a much better familiarity with that actual product.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Those have been really successful for us in terms of marrying those two things. I do feel that suppliers do appreciate the opportunity in terms of how you can reach a broader audience with virtual trainings, but I will say that no one will argue that being face-to-face is the best way.
Right.
Being with distributors, we host about 10 to 12 live hands-on trainings, either at a supplier's facility, at a rep agency facility. We have one coming up at Lawless next year, or at a facility where we have multiple suppliers working together to host a training. So those types of things, I think, always have the greatest amount of value.
So it's interesting. Yeah, I really, if I am listening correctly, I see that next iteration for you all is really about the education. I think that's that next chapter in your story here. At least that's what I'm hearing. So
Yeah, I think the other side of that is business education. I think I've really benefited from the opportunities that I've received through the University at Buffalo School of Management. I share that information. I just met with a distributor in Boston last week where we talked about his succession and the conversations that he needs to have with his uncles about that, about the things that he needs to start doing, just small things to step toward understanding who is your accountant, having a monthly meeting to look at the P&L and the balance sheet, having a better understanding of the cash flow of the organization and what types of things they have control of versus they don't have control of. What's the competitive advantage of the business? All of those are things that we want to continue to help grow and educate our members so that their businesses are profitable and successful, as much so as their people being well trained and educated on our suppliers' products.
Interesting, because I would agree that there is a gap. There's definitely an education gap that if you can fulfill that for your members, I think that's phenomenal, especially as they move into those next generation leadership positions, that there's a tremendous gap. The previous generation maybe did not have a need for that or felt that they did not have a need for that. And there's often that gap of education, particularly around financials. That's always what I see, is that financial piece just doesn't get communicated well.
Yeah, I mean, I think our industry in and of itself is very hands-on.
Yes.
If you're a next generation and you're getting involved in your distribution business, you're going to be working like in your business and with customers. So when you do that, even for me in this business, I got right to work doing marketing work and doing things that I knew really well.
Yeah.
It's taking the time to stop and understand all of those other aspects of your business that you need to know to be able to continue to grow it.
Right.
And offering those types of business support to our members is going to help ensure their long-term success.
Right. Even if it's not as fun, not as sexy, not as interesting as what they are necessary pieces, at least to be reasonably dangerous. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say, I would not tell Carrie Atlas, my VP of Finance, that, P&Ls and balance sheets aren't incredibly exciting and interesting. Come a long way together for sure.
Right. For sure. Well, if I could, I'd like to segue for a moment here. I'd like to talk a little bit about the giving back strategy that you have in the business, maybe in your personal life, but I am a follower of a lot of your social media side. And I see one of the things that stepped out for me was the Sleep in Heavenly Peace, that organization that you all support pretty heavily. I saw a nice video. There was a training you did recently, or an event that you did recently. Could you talk a little bit about that organization and why you all choose to support that?
The reason that I initially got involved with Sleep in Heavenly Peace is because I read an article about Jerry Sheldon, who is the chapter president here in Buffalo in Business First. And he was a former manufacturer owner in the area. And when he did an ESOP and retired, he decided to start a Sleep in Heavenly Peace chapter here in Buffalo. Sleep in Heavenly Peace has a very simple mission. It's no kid sleeps on the floor in our town.
Yeah.
And they also work and understand that kids' lives change when they have a bed to sleep in and they're not sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
The Buffalo chapter, I believe I just read their stat on their website. They have delivered their 1,964th bed in the 2 years that they've been established. And in the month of October alone, they delivered 148 beds. And that's just in this Western New York market.
No, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. So they have a facility that's here. It's actually in a mall, in a pretty big space in a mall that's not as populated as it used to be.
Aren't they all? Aren't they all?
Exactly. Yeah. And they have stations throughout this setup that they have where volunteers can come and use tools to build the components of beds that they build for kids. And they get a lot of the equipment donated. They get a lot of the materials donated, and then they do a tremendous amount of fundraising throughout the year to be able to fundraise what they need to buy materials and supplies. All of the people that come to volunteer and build beds bring bedding, pillows, comforters, and other things. They also get a lot of donations from large organizations in that regard as well, so that when their volunteers come to assemble the bed for the child in the home, they leave and have a full bed with sheets, comforter, pillow, and have a place to sleep. So it's an incredible organization. I'm really proud to be a part of it. If you go on their website, you can put your zip code in and you can find a chapter. They're all over the US. I feel like they're a perfect fit for this industry because a lot of people have hobbies in woodworking and metalworking, and the stations when you're there building are very easy to use. It's a great team building to take your team to do it. And we've been lucky. DeWalt and Radian, some of our suppliers have donated things that they've needed, earplugs, tools, batteries, and things like that. So it's just been a great experience for us to be involved with them.
And I think that you're right. It does fit the vertical very, very well. And it also fits the ethos of the owners in this, the owners of the business in this is that, who could not get behind something like this?
Right.
How could they not? When I saw this, you post this, my business partner, I think I shared this with you, my business partner's father is part of the chapter down in Roanoke, Virginia, and very involved with that. And he was a former staff-to-type business owner in the Southeast. And it works very well for him as well, to be involved with that. So yeah, I would love to see so many others get involved with this one. This one's, and I think it's fascinating when I do ask people about their charitable giving and the organizations that they align with. I've learned about so many different ones. Over now the 3.5 years I've been doing this, is I learned about so many different opportunities out there. And I think if the listeners are looking for that opportunity, where do I give back? This would be a phenomenal one to consider, and I do have a soft spot for organizations that support kids. I think that's one of those very noble offerings. So,
yeah, it's truly a great organization, and it's a great group activity too. It's a great thing to do either with kids or teams or your employees. It's a great opportunity to really build your team together.
Absolutely. No, I saw, again, pictures of you all together, building and doing things. And so, no, I think you're absolutely spot on with this. So, I want to wrap this up, but I truly appreciate you learning a little bit more about the organization and you. And, it's funny. I think, you and I've kind of gone in parallel along, our career path in our businesses here. And it's just such a pleasure to get to know a little bit more about you and where you all are headed. And I truly wish you all the success in the future.
Thank you, Jason. It's been great to be on. I appreciate the opportunity.
Perfect. I look forward to the next time our path crosses.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Impostor Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.